hopefully everybody's doing okay. If not, then Lord Jesus bless you all. I know to some that may bother you, but the truth is that's the way I start my days, whether I'm going to work, whether I'm going fishing, either way. I just thank the good Lord for the day. A little bit older you get, you realize that every day you have a blessing. Every day you feel good, that's an even more blessing. Either way, we thank the Lord for the day. So, came to mind, talk a little bit about different types of rods. Why do guys go out here and spend $100 on a rod versus maybe $40 on a rod? Why would I do that? Why would I go out and do that? Okay? Well, believe it or not, there's a lot to that topic. There's a lot into, and you can say, well, you're overthinking it. Well, maybe at times we are. A lot of times we tend to overthink things, but you think about this. When you go to buy a vehicle, okay, you can get the vehicle that doesn't have any extras, and that vehicle just runs just fine. It'll still have all the basics. It'll still have air conditioning. It'll still have, you know, the windows and the tires. Of course, you got to have the tires. And it may not have power locks. It may not have other things. And it'll run just fine. But if you spend just a little bit more money, then you wind up with power windows. You wind up with a lot of little other basic things, you know. The finish on the inside may be a little bit nicer. It's a little more comfortable. If you're somebody that drives a lot, that may mean more to you. If you're somebody who doesn't drive very much, you got about a 5-minute drive to work every day, then it don't mean a whole lot to you. You may be somebody who worked a little bit harder and you're able to go out and spend a little bit more money. You got heated seats and everything. Well, that's a luxury that you've got. You know? That's your decision to make. But that's basically the reason that we should buy, if we really want to, a little bit better rod to fish with. Because, let's be honest, I mean, a lot of us spend a lot of money on a lot of things. We can sit here and talk about all the different types of rods and all the different things, but this is just my take on it. Not a professional, not sponsored by any of these rod companies. This is just what I have accumulated. This is what I've come to the conclusion on. I've been fishing for over 40 years. Been fishing since I was a little boy. Just fishing right on the ocean. I was blessed to be fishing in creeks. I've fished in lakes. I've caught saltwater fish, freshwater fish in 3 or 4 different countries. So I've seen a little bit about fishing. And I'm telling you that so far there hasn't been one fish that's come out that's been upset because I'm not using a high-end rod. Okay? But we're going to talk a little bit about why we would pick different things. It's just my viewpoint. This is why I do it, okay? We all have different reasons. So, this right here is a Ducket fishing Silverado. Okay, a lot of people talk bad about it. A lot of people like it. This is just my personal take on it. I've had this rod right here for about 2 years now, okay? And I've got another one that's pretty much just like it. Not with me out here to show you, but I've got another one. This rod right here is a medium heavy. It's a 6'9". Why would I like a 6'9"? A 6'9", I'm 6 foot tall. 6'9" is just a little bit taller than me, okay? But it's a very comfortable rod to fish with, okay? I use a medium heavy for every application I've got. Is that the best thing? Is that for you? I can't tell you that. I can tell you that for me it is, because I've learned how to play fish a little bit lighter, but I've also been using little small baits and tiny things and have 3 and 4 pound largemouth get on there. And then you've got this little wimpy rod and you can't control that fish at all. If you're out in open water, that's a good idea. It's fun to play with them and stuff. But if you're in a lake and you're on the bank, or you're in a kayak and all of a sudden you've thrown that little bait out there and the fish hits it, he pulls you down and goes under this log, I'm telling you, if you got that little wimpy rod, you're probably not going to get him out. You can talk all day long about how tough your line is. You can talk all day long. Probably you're not going to get that fish out. Why? Because you have no control over that fish. Most of the time when we hook one with the heavy equipment, we don't have control over it. No, I'm not trying to treat this as a winch. I'm just telling you that it's a lot easier to control fish. It's a lot easier to have a universal rod versus a rod that's just a little wimpy rod. So that's my take on it. Now everybody turns around and says, well, I like a 7-foot, or I like a 7.6, or, well, here's my personal opinion. To me, one of the number one things I look for is the weight. Why do I look for the weight? Because it's pretty obvious with my gray hair, I'm a little bit older. When I go out to fish for an hour or two, it's my day off, or maybe I've got off work and I want to run to the lake real quick to get a little topwater bite because it's raining. What's my thing I want to do? I want to go out and enjoy myself. And my bones and arms and shoulders are already hurting. So I want something that's lightweight, okay? Graphite rods are very lightweight, but they're also kind of tough as far as strong. So one of the things that I'm going to show you is the way this rod bends, okay? Now, like I said, I'm not a professional, I'm just telling you. This rod bends, you can tell, it's got a little bit of bend in the tip, and that's because it's a medium heavy. If it was a medium action, then it would bend all the way up and through here too, which this has a little bit of bend, but not as much as a medium would. So this has plenty enough action for me to fight a fish. Plenty enough action. Now, what I've got on here is a little bitty lightweight, little worm type bait. This is a 10th ounce, and I'm telling you, I can throw it just fine on this spinning rod. I've got 20-pound Power Pro that's about 6-pound diameter, just green line, nothing expensive. And then I've got this little 10, 12-pound fluorocarbon little leader on here, about 3 foot of it, 4 foot of it, and I can cast it just fine on this. Can I throw it 100 yards? No, I can't. But I can throw it far enough that it's away from me in the bank. If I'm on a kayak, I can throw it at least 30, 40 feet away from me very easily, okay? You don't always have to have a real long cast. Now, when I put a 1/2 ounce topwater on here, or I put a 3/8 ounce little, maybe walk the dog bait or a jerk bait, I can throw it just fine. I can cast just as far as anybody else with other things, just because. My main concern, though, is this is light. So it's very easy on my shoulder, okay? I want you to look at this right here. A lot of people don't think about this when they get a rod. When you pull this down, that's what a fish does, okay? Look at the reaction time that it takes this rod, when I let go of this line, to stop bouncing, okay? It don't take that long, does it? Well, and that's because that has to do with sensitivity. So that bait, you see that little bait bouncing around on it, it hits it, but it recovers very quickly. What does that mean? That means it's ready for a hook set instantly. Most times, to be honest with you, with a lot of baits, I just pull back and start reeling, because I use a lot of baits that are open hook. I use a drop shot. Even when I use little plastic baits, a lot of times, I used to set the hook like I was going to just bring the thunder, and I was going to bring that fish out of the water. I quit doing that. Why? Because I started snapping line a lot. Didn't matter what type of line I had, it seemed like I was snapping line a lot. Old man told me years ago, he said, son, you don't have to set the hook like that. He said, that's a little bitty hook. Just pull back. And when I started listening to him and slowing down, I started catching a little more fish, and I quit breaking fish off. That rod right there, when they first came out, they were about $100. Okay? Not super expensive. I've had rods that are upwards of $200, a little bit more. Was it the smartest thing? I don't know. I enjoyed having the rods. It was fun. I had 5 or 6 of those rods. Did I use them all? To be honest with you, sometimes I went out on the lake. I had a boat back then. I didn't use them all the time. I had them all rigged up with different baits. Why do people do that? A lot of times that's why they have 3 or 4 setups. So they don't have to spend the time retying a bait. They can just pick up another bait and throw it. Simple little technique. You throw a topwater out, you bring it along, something blows up on it, don't take it. Pick up another rod that has another little sinking little bait, throw it. A lot of times you'll catch that fish. That right there is the purpose of why people have several different rods a lot of times, okay? Another purpose right here I'm gonna show you. You say, well, what about if I just don't fish a whole lot? What if I just fish an hour or so here and there? What if I'm 20 years old and I'm not worried about my shoulders? Well, then you very well can go. This is an ugly stick. This ugly stick right here is 6'6", medium action. It's a little bit lighter, but I'm gonna show you something. The action on this rod isn't a whole lot different than that other rod, other than one thing. And you know what that is? Watch this. When I let go of this tip right here, after I bend it down a little bit, watch what happens. It takes longer for that reaction time. It just sits there and wobbles all around. I can barely move it. Look, it just moves all over the place. You would think, well, that rod's more sensitive. But it's not. Why is it not? One of the reasons that it's not is because this rod here is about 3 times heavier. I haven't weighed them, but I can tell you by holding them, it's about 3 times heavier than that other rod. It is a shorter rod. Well, shouldn't I want a 6'6" rod? Well, maybe you do. Are you going to fish topwaters a lot and work the bait down? Are you going to fish in a creek somewhere and it'd be little tight corners? Then you may need a little shorter rod. Another thing a lot of people don't think about is how tall are you? So I'm 6 foot tall, so a 6'6" to me is very easy to use no matter where I'm at. Yes, with a longer rod you can get longer casts, but is it really necessary for me to have a 7-11 rod? I don't fish like a lot of those guys do. I'll be honest with you, my shoulder, I used to have a 7'6" flipping stick. Very nice. And I'll tell you the brand that I even had at the time. It was a Shimano Crucial, 7'6", had a big old flipping rod. It was a heavy action. You think, man, I used to fish jigs all the time, throw them around grass, 20, 25 pound line, throw them in, and buddy, I could pull them out and just jerk them right out of anything. Guess what though? After about 2 hours of flipping around with that thing, son, my shoulder was killing me. Why? I learned eventually, because even though that was a high-end rod, it was long, and I was moving that whole rod every time. Every time I'd cast, every time I'd flip, every time I'd move, that was hard on my shoulders. I finally sold it. What did I wind up getting? Crazy as it may sound, I wind up getting a 6'9" or a 6'6" bait casting rod, same thing, with a little bit less action. Well, why would you do that? Because of the weight. The weight made a big difference to me. See, I can take this rod right here, and if I'm going to the creek, I don't want to break my other rods, I may take this one with me. This right here, that one's a 1-piece. This one here's a 2-piece. I can take this apart. I can put it in the back of my car. If I don't plan on going fishing right now, don't want to leave my rods where everybody can see them in my car, I can put this in my trunk. I can do whatever I want to. This rod, I'm not so worried about breaking it, because this rod's a little bit tougher. But since it is a little bit tougher, I'm gonna tell you right now, it's heavier. So, and it's not as sensitive. I'm not gonna be able to feel those little bites as I am that little bait. I'm not gonna be able to feel that little jig dragging across the bottom. You may not do that type of fishing. I'm not gonna be able to feel. With that rod right there, I can throw it down, I can throw a bait out, whether it be a plastic worm or anything. And with that braided line and that fluorocarbon together, I can pull it across little rocks, I can pull it across tree stumps, and I can feel that it's coming over that tree stump. With this rod right here, if I throw the exact same bait, you know what I can feel? I can feel when I get hung up. I can feel, I can feel pressure. I don't feel the tapped little tick tick of the bottom. What I feel is pressure, and all of a sudden I'm hung up. With that one over there, I can start to feel that it's creeping. I can take my time and move it right over whatever I'm fishing. I may still get hung up, but that one has a bigger sense of feel. That's what you're paying for. Remember we were talking about the car earlier. The higher grade of car, the more things you're looking at. You think, well, but it holds the rod, or it holds the reel. Sure does. This is the exact same reel. It's Sedona 2500 that the other one has. But the difference is the feel, the difference. Now, if I'm going to go to the bank and all I want to do is I'm going to the lake, or I'm going to a pond, or I'm going to the creek, and I'm going to throw a little popper or a little jerk bait and just twitch, 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 where feel really isn't that important, does it matter? Doesn't matter one bit. This rod right here would do just fine. All I do is just fish for bluegill. Get you a little ugly stick. Get you one. They even have a section of ugly sticks. It's called the light. They're kind of a bluish color. They used to make them. They're a little bit lighter. They're about half as light as these rods. They'll do just fine. About a $40 rod, and they're fine. You can cast out. You can throw. This one right here throws just as far as any of those other rods. The only difference is this one right here is rated for 6 to 15 pound line. That one over there, I looked up the rating for it, and it does 6 to 12 pound line. It's not a big difference, okay? You say, well, why do you use the 20 pound Pro braid on your spinning rods? I use it for the durability. That braid right there, I can have that same braid on there for 2 or 3 years, depending on how much I fish it, depending on how it wears. All I do is change out the leader. If you use monofilament, if you use 4-carbon, if you use any of those lines, and you go more than 2 or 3 times a week, or you're one of those guys that goes every night when he gets home from work, you're going to be changing your line out before too long. Why? Because you're whipping it, and eventually your line gets little twists, little kinks, little things. You're cutting off baits, you're tying on baits, you're doing different things with it. Eventually, you'll go through that line. You'll lay that line. You may not even use the rod. You may lay it over on the side of the boat, and that sun beats down on it. You wouldn't believe how much that sun breaks down that line. Back to the spinning rods. Back to the different types of rods. So this one's definitely heavier, okay? Now you're going to say, well, the manufacturer. So what type of rod should I get? Doesn't matter. I know they don't want to hear me say that, but the truth is it doesn't matter. All the manufacturers, you can buy different rods. Years ago, I used to blame the manufacturers because I'd set the hook and I'd set the rod. To be honest with you, a lot of times it's my fault. Now, when you get to the little rods that are $20, when you get to the rods that are $35, they're on a clearance rack, be careful with some of those. Why? Because, to be honest, it's just like a car. When you go out and buy a car that's brand new, and they told you they got a good deal for it, and it's just $2,500 for that car. I don't know you, but I bought a few cars. I'm gonna sit there and look at it. You mean it's brand new and it's only $2,500? Yeah, it's $2,500 just for you. It's brand new, no strings attached. I'm gonna question that a little bit. Why? Because what's the warranty with it? Oh, it don't have no warranty. Well, how many people have used it? Not many people buy it. I'm probably gonna question that. Same thing with rods. Don't go by what just people say online. Don't go by, a lot of these people are getting paid to be able to say what they do. The best thing I can tell you is listen around and then get you a friend, somebody that you know, about everybody fishes, and ask them, hey, what type of rods do you use? Why do you use them? You say, well, what kind of rod should I pick? Well, it all depends on what you're going to be fishing. My best advice is get a closer rod to how tall you are. If you're 5'6", don't go get a 7-11. Why? Because if you know what you're doing, if that's what you want, then go for it. But the truth is, you're probably not going to be comfortable with that rod. You're going to try to use a jerkbait with a 7-11 rod, and you're 5'6", probably not going to work out very good for you. Okay. On the contrary, if you're 7 foot tall and you want a 6'6", may just be fine for you, but it may feel like a little wimpy stick to you. You may want a 6 just because that's the action you want. A lot of people ask me, well, how come you fish a medium heavy rod instead of a medium light rod? Here's my simplest explanation. If you got that medium light rod, if you was to go do a job and you knew that you were going to dig a hole one day, you walked up and they told you, well, we want you to dig 10 of these. I said, okay. He said, you got your choice. You got your choice on which one you can use. You can either use a spoon, you can either use a shovel, or you can go out here and you can pay all this money and get you a backhoe. What's every one of us going to say? Man, I'd just soon get that backhoe. Well, when you go over there with that backhoe and you realize that the holes you got to dig is about 10 inches round and about 4 foot deep, you think, I think that may have been overkill. I think I really didn't need this backhoe. But then you look at that spoon and you think, man, I really don't want to do it with a spoon either. So I think I'll just take that shovel. So shovel becomes a middle of the road. Why do I say it like that? Because guys, in fishing, that's one of the best things there is about fishing. You never know what you're going to catch. You never know if you're going to catch a little fish, a big fish, a really big fish for a lifetime. You don't know. The reason I chose medium heavy is because throughout the years, I've used those medium lights and medium rods, and then I've caught a hold of those 3 and 4 and 5 pound largemouth, or I've caught a hold of those 3 or 4 pound smallmouth. And if you're out in the open water, sure, you can slow him down and you can fight him. But if you're on a bank, if you're over beside these weeds, if you're beside logs, if you're beside things, there's a good chance you're not going to fight that fish. You're not going to get him out of there. Now, am I going to sit there and cast a light bait on this big 7-Eleven flipping stick with 25-pound line, and I'm going to fish maybe a little Senko or a Ned rig? No, that don't make much sense either. That's the reason why I use medium heavy rod. That's the reason why I use a medium heavy spinning rod, because I can do just about anything with it. This is the last rod I'm going to talk about. This one right here. That way, with that medium heavy, I can be ready just about with anything comes. I can have just as much fun catching those little fish as I can the bigger fish. Any more in my years, I love catching the big ones, but I love catching numbers as well. So just whatever I'm blessed with that day, that's what I'm doing. This rod right here is a Ducket Green Ghost, okay? It's not as light as that other one, but that other one cost me about $100. This one here cost about $70 at the time, okay? Prices on these things go up and down. No, I'm not sponsored by Ducket, but at the time, all the other rods that I looked at were kind of high, even compared to these. And I wanted something that I kind of stayed within the same little thing. That way you kind of learn about it. Like I said, I've had these for about 2 years. I've used them all kinds of times. This one's made a little bit different. It's got different materials, but I'll show you. It's the same setup as far as where that reel sits. There ain't much difference between the two, okay? It's just a little bit higher than the other. This one here is a 7 foot. Oh, I'd rather a 7 foot any day other than a 6'9". You hear that all over. Guess what, guys? Don't make that much difference. Just 3 inches. That's all it is. We're talking about this much. You see this bait right here? It's about 3 inches long. That's the difference between a 6'9" and a 7 foot rod. There ain't that much difference, okay? This one does, though. I will show you this. This one does. The action on it is different. Okay? The action on this rod is different. This rod right here, the way it bends is a little bit stiffer. Now I'm putting a little more pressure to do that. And the bend on it's different. Okay? What's that mean? That means that this rod here isn't quite as sensitive as that other rod was. Okay? But it's still more sensitive than that ugly stick. This rod right here, technically, what do I wind up doing with it? I bought this originally as a backup. And then I wound up liking that other one so much that I went back and bought one exactly like it. And those are the two, those other Silverados that I showed you, those are the ones that I use the most. This one here I use as an extra rod. I love throwing this rod though. I love using it. It's fun to fish with. I got the same size reel just by a different company, and one day we'll go over the reels, the differences between them. But this has the same little silver stainless guides. It's almost as light as that other one. I can throw this for 2 or 3 hours and my shoulder don't bother me. It's got a little more backbone in it, so I tend to use it for more things. Like I'll use it for a popper. I'll use it for, especially if I'm going to be around grass. I'll use it for little worm or something, plastic worm, something I need to pull a hook through. Just different things like that. But I hope this right here has helped a little bit. I hope that maybe it's helped you when you go pick out a rod. Don't get tied up into the money. It's very easy to do. If you have the money and you know what you're looking at, there's nothing wrong with buying nice things. But if you don't have the money, like I said, I've never caught a fish that's been upset with me and spit my hook just because of what type of brand of rod I had. People out here sometimes we get too focused in what type and what brand. Somebody like me, I'm going to be honest with you. I can fish just as much as the other one. I would rather have one of these. I would rather spend $100, $150 on a fishing outfit. And I know that sounds crazy. Why? Because of the way I fish. I like feeling the bait the way it's doing. I like feeling it when it's coming through there. I like the lightweight, so it's easier on my shoulder. So I'm willing to pay a little bit for those things. Do I need 14 of them? Probably not. doesn't some days make it convenient when I go to the lake and I've got 2 or 3 of these? I'll have a couple baits, I'll go to one spot, throw one for a little bit, put it down, pick up another and throw it. Makes it very convenient. Do I have to have it all the time? No. Honestly, a lot of times I've probably cost myself fishing because I spent more time switching rods than actually trying to fill the bait. So that's a little bit too, but that's a whole nother day, a whole nother talk. Anyway, I hope this helped everybody a little bit. Like I said, I'm not professional. This is just something I do for fun. Hope it blesses somebody. Hope it helps them have just a better day. Maybe it helps them pick what rod they need. Anyway, God bless. Y'all have a great day.